Hello, my name is Jason Miller, founder of AAspennow Solutions, and we're about to unlock the power of ServiceNow. I'd like to start off by thanking all 2,510 subscribers in over 80 countries globally. If you believe in transferring knowledge to those who need it most, please click subscribe. Your user data will not be transferred to anyone outside of AAspennow without your consent. Okay, so today we're going to get into 10 things that you can do with dot walking. Before I get to that though, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about a trip that I went on. Went to Prague, met with a up-and-coming YouTuber named Karthik. The gentleman there is really putting a lot of time and effort into his channel and understanding ServiceNow and passing that knowledge on to other users. So I think that's a really great thing that he's doing. So if you get a chance, just go ahead and check him out. And then the other thing I'd like to comment on is that I met with a group of ServiceNow developers in Warsaw, Poland, and it's about 15 or so. We met up on a Friday night and just exchanged some information, you know, what we're all working on, stuff like that. Really cool stuff, and they gave me some great ideas on how to make the channel better. You know, through sharing their experiences, I was able to get a better understanding of, you know, what other people face with their customer requirements. And yeah, you know, doing business in the States is fundamentally different than doing business in Europe. I came to find out, mostly because a lot of the customizations that they make in the software, you know, just like here in the US, regulatory changes will impact what goes into the software and the way it needs to behave, right? Okay, so today, let's get to it. Dot walking. So I'm just going to take you through here. I listed about 10 or so on these little slides here, or these little yellow squares. You'll see the slides, and we'll get into it. So what is dot walking? Let's just start off with that right now. A little explanation of it. So it's a way that we can tap into the data that is housed in tables. And today, one of the main ones that I'm going to use is like the user table. So when you look at a user record, what goes on the user record? Their name, maybe the city they're in or location, phone number, email. So we probably understand, you know, the components of what goes in that record. So if we're on a form like the one we're about to look at, I just picked this application server form to start out. Later on, we'll get into a form using the problem application. So here, basically, what I wanted to show was that we can dot walk basically support groups manager here and make it dynamic. And the way we do that is to go into configure. So let's back up one second here. We would right click or two finger click if you're on a Mac like myself. You're going to go to configure, and then you would go to form layout, and that would take us into a screen like this. So we see here we have these green fields. So that basically indicates that it's a reference field, and what we can do is if we wanted to tap into the support group manager, we could do that by going down to support group. Right here, we're going to hit this little expand icon, and then it's going to bring up a second level here. So here's everything that's going on the support group table, right? So we already have the support groups managers information right here, but maybe we want to get something else off this table. Maybe we want the domain, for example. So if we want to do that, we're going to just pull it over here. So now we have his domain, the support group's domain on the form also. So I'll click save. And what I'm going to do is just refresh this form here. Okay, and we see here the domain is global. One thing to note about this method here, if you have the requirement to bring up something else from this record right here, if you do end up changing it, like these are reference fields here, so it'll be very hard to change. But if we were to bring up like a string field, like support group, maybe manager first name or something like that, if we change it on this form, then it will change it in that table. So I just want to note that. And I'll show you a couple of other examples and some other questions that you can ask your customers too when they're asking for, you know, I want to see the manager for this support group, I want to see the domain that it's in, There's a couple other things that you probably need to ask when you're implementing this solution too. Okay, so number 2, lists, right? So dynamic values I put down also here. So basically, if you want one value to change, so for example here, we're going to see almost the same thing: support group and then domain. So let's just say I want to add a new application server here. Oh, isn't that great? I've been in this thing for so long, gave me an error, but no problem. Okay, so let's say we want to name our application Superman or something like that. Then we're going to put in our support group. Let's see if it comes up. I don't know, maybe the test group. And you'll see here it populates, right? We have our manager and domain. So the dot walking is working just as planned. And now we'll go ahead and hit submit. Oh, and that took me back to this. Yay. Thank you for making it complicated, but no big deal. So what I'm going to do is just cancel out this. Hopefully this brings us to our form. There we go. And we see Superman has been added. Okay, so now we have our support group and our domain here. So these are dot walked from this table right here. And that's going to be the groups table. Now, if you want to add something else, like let's say we want to add the manager, I'm going to right click here, configure, and we're going to note here that you have to be an admin to do this type of stuff. And the reason why is because if we let the users just add or dot walk whatever they want, then we're going to run into some big time performance issues later on down the line. At least that's what they say. I'm not sure if that's totally true, but so we're going to go to list layout, support group dot domain. So let's say I want to add the manager now. So again, I'm going to go pretty much the same thing that we did previous in the form, but now we're going to do it in the list view, right? Bring over the manager, and I don't know, maybe I want to add something for the manager too. So let's see here. Do I want the manager's, maybe I want the phone number, something like that, and we'll see if it pulls it through. And they say, I guess, don't dot walk more than 3 levels down, and in some cases maybe I'll even demonstrate later, like you really can't. So it looks like the phone number is not in this person's profile, so it's not bringing it through. So we'd have to go ahead and take a look at that, how we're going to get that information. Okay, so next one, SLAs. So SLAs, guess what? There's no real scripting involved. You're going to be dealing with the condition builder, right? So as you can see here, I did reported by .city and reported by .department. Right, so this one is Miami and this one's finance, and let's just walk through how we would set this up. So we'd open this, and again, I'm in New York right now, so your condition builder may look a little bit different. And we're going to look for these arrows. If you don't see any arrows next to like assign to or assign group, what you're going to do is you're going to open this up. You're going to see, oh, no arrows. So what do I do now? You're going to type in show, SH, excuse me, show related fields. Boom. Okay, so at that point, you're going to see the arrows pop up. See right here, assignment group. Kind of looks a little bit different, but you get the point there. And then if we want to, we can go to the assignment group fields, and we could say, all right, what do I want off the assignment group to use in this definition, right? So I could use the manager's name, maybe manager, time zone, whatever it is that we're looking for here. So in order to set up reported by city here, we're going to go to reported by, hit the arrow, scroll down to city, and then we could type in Miami. So that would be how you could dot walk and make sure the SLA is defined correctly. So now let's open up another, looks like we already have an open record here. So I'm going to try eProblem maybe to create the problem. Let's see here, problem, let's type, there we go, create new. All right, so what was in our SLA definition here? I think there was a priority also now. No, active is true, Miami and finance, okay. All right, so now what I'm going to do is say, all right, let's bring in me. Now you see how that city automatically populated? And then if we look at the user record here, we'll see we have finance. as our department, and then our location is Miami, city is Miami. So if we look at right here, reported by city, Miami, and then department is finance, then this thing should fire. So let's do that. I don't know, I might even make it a priority 1. And then I'm going to hit save. And we'll see if it fires. And there we go. There's our task SLA that fired right there. It's called .walk Aspen Miami. Okay, so great. And then here were a couple questions when you're implementing the solution. So right here, you'll see that I .walked the reported by city. If I hover over this question mark, it tells you that right there. I also created a client script to push a value, meaning push the city from the user record instead of doing the .walk. And the reason why I wanted to compare these two right now is because you're going to get into situations out there where you're going to want to ask the customer, okay, so how often does this change? Meaning the city, right? Or a person's phone number. I've dealt with customers in the past. They don't, like some of the people who call in the tickets, their numbers change all the time because they're going to different locations and they can only be reached at that specific location. So the question that you want to ask is like, okay, how often does this change? And then what do you want to see 1 year from now? So when this record is closed, do you want to see the old city that they were in at the time, which would be this one here, because this is basically going to be a one-time push based on the reported by. Now, the updated information or information that was part of the record a year ago, right? So that's what we're trying to compare here, because this one right here, if we change this to something else, like, I don't know, let's just say the keys, and we'll hit save. Now let's open up our record here. You see how the city changed here too? So if you don't want the users to be able to modify the user record, you're going to want to make this read-only. So I'm going to change this back to Miami. Click save. Because sometimes you'll get that requirement too. Like, okay, like from the problem record or incident record probably more commonly, I want to be able to change the user's data in their user profile. Or if you don't want to, then you're going to, again, make this read-only. All right, so I hope all that made sense. If you have any questions, feel free to make a comment in the box below. Okay, reports. .walking, huge. So if you want to know, and here I just pulled up a report, like if I want to know all the active Miami problems right now, and we can just take a look at the construct here of condition builder. Hold on, there we go. So again, it's reported by .city. I'm just going to show you real quick again. So let's see here, reported by .city. And you know, I'm not sure if anyone from ServiceNow is going to watch this, but if they can make this so you could type this one too, because sometimes you'll have a monster list that you got to scroll through and do a million of these things. But here it's great, you can type, but I wish that this right here, you'd be able to like type and search too. So anyway, I put in city, basically the same thing. So right now, let's just run it. We should have a couple more, right? We have 9 total active problems in Miami. Okay, so now number 5, Flow Designer. You can also do .walking in Flow Designer too. So there's a big push to get people to use Flow Designer instead of workflows, and I guess they're going to phase out workflows in a later dated version. But basically what I set up here was when the problem's created, priority is 1, and the reported by city, meaning the person in that box, the city is Miami, then we have an email going. Then we're going to add the user, we're going to add the assigned to a conversation, and then also the reported by. So basically I .walked it, right? How did I do that? Basically I opened up the problem record, and then I went down to reported by, and then I just dragged it over like that. In order to add that user there. So if we go back to our record here, I believe this is a priority 1. And sometimes, you know, this thing takes a little bit to refresh. So I was kind of playing around with it. Now I have 2 dialog boxes open, and I'm not sure if this one's going to make it there just yet. It'll probably come in a couple minutes, but it might be just my connection here is a little slow. But it'll add whoever's in those boxes there. So we don't really have the assigned to filled in. So if we wanted to try it again, we could do that. But basically, I just want to show that you can dot walk in the Flow Designer also. So now, moving on, we got notifications, and then I did kind of 6 and 7 together. So notifications, and then also, if you want to do like a front end URL within notifications, I'll show you how you can dot walk that too. So here we're going to look at a notification, and this is a requirement I had a while back where it's coming off the sysapproval table, and what we're instructing the user to do, the person who made the request in this scenario, was go back to like the original request, and then you're gonna make a comment, or make an update based on the comments below. So I have this request set up that has an approval on it, and what I'm going to do is preview it. I'm going to show you the difference between the two links. So first off, I dot walked right here. So if you see here, it says sysapproval. So if we were to go to like my approvals on the approvals table, and maybe I can open that up even. Let's find a window here. Let's do Y approvals. And we'll see, here's the request at hand. Okay, so now see how we have this approving right here. This is, I can't remember if this is the sysapproval or I think it's approval 4 maybe. But basically one of these, I believe it's this one. So we'll see here the number is this, REQ, right? But what's in that record? So we'll see that this is on the SC request table, and then if I want to do the requested for, it would be requested underscore 4. So if we go and take a look at our construct here, it goes sysapproval dot request dot requested for, and then when we preview it, we're going to see the person's name appear. And then the next thing that I'll point out, so here are the two links that I was talking about. So click here to go to this record. So we'll see the construct here, instance name, portal name is AAspennow, have this little question mark ID, form, and table, and then I did task, right, and sysid. Now we're going to see this $, squiggly brace, sysapproval dot sysid, and view equals portal. And I'm going to show you the difference between the two, because originally I plopped this in here, I was a little bit lazy, but I'm trying to direct the user not back to the approval record, but to the request in this scenario. So we'll just see the difference in a second. So I'm going to hit preview, and then I can't remember if there we go. Excellent. So we'll see here, approver Jason Miller came through. Looks like my dot walk didn't work, maybe on the request itself. Something's going on here where it didn't come through, but let's just take a look at these two now. So let's click on this one, and is it going to bring us to our request? It does. Perfect. So I found the request. Here's who it's opened by, and then the next thing is we want to click on this one the old way, and we're going to find that it's going to tell us record not found. So the dot walk is what made this happen here with that sysapproval dot, the sysid, right? So just make sure that you take care of that right there. And if you want me to send this to you, more than happy to do that. And yeah, I don't know what's going on here with this thing, but I'll revisit that later. We saw here that the sysapproval dot short description did come through, so good news on that. So again, if we want to take a quick look at it, see if it comes up. Actually, the approver came through, not the short description. So something's going on there with it. The dot walking, it's not pulling it through. So I'm just going to leave that one alone for right now, and then we can move on to number 8. So client and business rule scripts. So if we want to take a look here, I created one for reported by city on the problem table, and basically when the reported by changes, and here I defined a variable, right? Because a lot of times what people are going to do is say, okay, I want to get the value, but on a reference field you have to use get reference, right? So I'm saying get the reported by, and then populate the city, right? So Aspen here, which is our a reference value there, and then populate it with the city, right? So we're setting the value u_city with AAspennow1, which is this variable here. So it's basically whatever's coming off that user record as the city. Then we're going to set the city on the record right there. So I think we can go back to our problem here. We'll see that's the client script that I was referring to here. So it's pulling the city from this user record. It's just doing that one-time push. So remember those couple of key questions when you're doing your requirements gathering to ask, like, what do they want to see in the future? Do they want to see the old value or the new value if it's something that changes pretty often? Okay, so we did that. And then we're going to have our record producer script. So if you're creating a record producer, create one here called Aspen request. It's a table name. Then if we scroll down here, let's take a look at the construct. So I'm saying uAspen RP location, which I believe I put on the backend form, is going to be equal to producer dot whoever they put in the requester slot dot location. Okay, so we'll take note of that. Then I have another one down here for phone, and I can't remember. I think I made two locations. I think one's a string and the other one's a choice or something like that. I can't remember the difference between the two, but anyway, we have one here for phone. So we're saying whatever phone number from this record, from this producer is off the Aspen requester, then throw it in here to this Aspen phone, and we can see how that works in just a second. So again, we have our information coming off our user record. We'll see that this changed a couple of times, that's why it's updating. And then we'll go here to our record producer. Okay, so again, I don't even have to put in all the other stuff, right? Because the dot walking is doing the work for me. I don't need to ask the requester what city they're in. It's already in the database. We have it in the data table. So let's just put in Jason Miami. Brings me up, and I don't know, I'll put in some of this other stuff too. I'm gonna say it's critical. We're gonna hit submit. Okay, fantastic. And now when we go to the back end, we're gonna see, let's refresh this list. Number 17, what do we have here? We have our location, this is the RP location. We have our phone, we have our city, but I don't think we had our city in that record producer script. Now that brings us to number 10, workflow run script. Now I did comment earlier that I think that the push is to go away from workflows to Flow Designer. So I just wanted to show for some of you that are still messing with workflows, before we get to our conclusion there, how to set this up. So this is just the basic run script running off that for that record producer. This is a workflow. You go to workflow editor, you can open up a new workflow. You can put in this run script. And it's going to take a second to load, but basically what we're saying here is in the script, current u_city, that is the name of the field, and then we're going to have current dot variables dot uAspen requester dot city, and it automatically populates the city as you just saw in that previous example. So it's pushing not from the record producer script, but from the workflow. And it's up to you how to implement that. So sometimes you want to put in the workflow because you want to push just that, that one time, and maybe you want everything to be here and not in the record producer because maybe you're going to have the approvals in here and some other stuff too. So it's all a matter of preference. I would say it doesn't really matter, to be honest with you, which way you do it, but that's up to you. Okay, so here are the 10 things, just to review again, that you can do with dot walking. We have forms, lists, SLAs, reports, Flow Designer, notifications, front-end URLs within notifications, client BR scripts, record producer scripts, and workflow run scripts. So there you have it. My name is Jason Miller, founder of AAspennow Solutions, and we've just unlocked the power of ServiceNow.